If you can be a compassionate leader and show empathy, and be willing to be tough and candid, but be human. Nobody wins from this or berating. Nobody wins in any of that leadership styles anymore.
Welcome to Confessions of an Implementer. I'm your host, Ryan Hogan. We share unique stories of EOS implementers and the companies they've transformed to give you a rare glimpse into the successes and challenges of the system in action. Let's jump in. We've got a ton to talk about today, and I don't have like necessarily an end state or a desired state, because your story is so incredible. And I think I told you before we hit the record button that I don't do big intros. However, I just want to point out just a few things that's in your background. You've got former expert EOS implementer. You've got the co-founder of 90, which, by the way, we were an early adopter with Hunt to Killer at 90. You've got co-founder of System and Soul. You've got executive coach, founder of Micro Business Academy, co-founder of Profit Pro. First question leading up, do you sleep?
Yeah, I do. Because I've learned to use this little thing called the egg timer. So I kind of block my time. And, listen, none of those things you mentioned did I do on my own. I had partners, phenomenal partners that continue with those programs today, and hats off to them. They're doing a phenomenal job. But I really enjoyed my time at EOS. I think I was there 10 or 11 years. And, while I was there, I came from a SaaS background. I had already built two SaaS companies and sold them. So when I got into EOS with Gino, they had this wonderful book, and but it was all paper based. And so one program had come out, but then I approached Mark Abbott and I said, "Hey, we could do this." and my background in SaaS helped. And I eventually left. I got some pretty serious health issues and exited. Mark is doing a phenomenal job running 90. And so is Benj Miller at S2. I feel like I've sort of been a part of giving birth to two operating systems at 90 and S2. One was built for an existing system and one was built to evolve. And neither one of them are right, wrong, or indifferent. It's all based on the end user, right? What they need. But they're great programs. I was proud to be a part of them, and definitely proud to be a part of my time at EOS. My goodness, I'll tell you kind of the quick story, because it is a full circle story and it's really meaningful to me, even though I'm no longer affiliated with EOS. I was working, making very good money, and I was bored stiff. But having grown up in an entrepreneurial family, I'm the eighth of 8 boys. My grandparents were entrepreneurs. My parents built 2 businesses. My perception of entrepreneurship was no thanks. I never saw my dad. Did you sleep? My dad worked a lot. Of course, having 8 kids will keep you out there, but it does take a lot. And so when I had the opportunity, I got a phone call from a business owner that I knew in New Jersey. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to implement this system. And he asked me, he goes, I'd like you to be on my board and I'd like you to be on my SLT team." And I'm like, "Okay, let me dive into this." He goes, No, I'm just going to send you a book. I'm like, "Okay." You can see behind me, Ryan, I'm a voracious reader. I got a book called Traction on a Saturday morning. I never heard of it. And I probably read it in about 2.5 hours. And I was kind of like, wow, where is this? I was thinking, I did very well in my 2 exits. And I was thinking, man, if I would have had a system, more of a disciplined system, right? That maybe I would have get a bit larger multiplier. Maybe I wouldn't have sold at all. I don't know. But it was really intriguing. So I had to know more. So I called the business owner back in New Jersey and I said, hey, I don't know him. I don't know the author. I don't know the system. I've called a lot of people in my network. Nobody's heard of it. I'm all in. So for 2 years, I sat on an executive team, and an implementer came from Detroit, and we implemented EOS into this $10 million company, and it was transformational. Transformational. And the funny thing is, the implementer, and I'm going to give a shout out to Dwayne Marshall, because he was the EOS implementer from Detroit, protege of Gino's. And he just walked up to me on the very last day and he said, hey, Chris, can I ask you a question? I go, yeah, what's up? And he goes, well, the whole time we were doing this, I just got the feeling that you thought you could do what I do. And I said, Dwayne, that's a great recruiting line. I said, Dwayne, I said, to be honest with you, I do think I can do what you do. Number one, I've already built 2 companies. So I've got the dirt under the fingernails. I got the scars on the arms, and I got the worn tread on the boots. I've walked those miles, many, many miles. But the other thing is, I went to school to be a teacher. All I ever wanted to be was like a high school teacher and a coach. I did not have these big, like business aspirations, like my dad or my grandfather. I love sports. I love playing sports. I love coaching sports. So that was it. But this book changed my life because it allowed me to become a teacher and a coach just at the executive level as opposed right to the academic or school level. And let me tell you, it was the perfect timing for everything. And over the course of the next 11 years, like I say, I built a lot of stuff inside of 90. I had a wonderful time. And when they decided to become a franchise is when we parted ways. We kind of shook hands and parted friends. Everybody knew me for that saying. As much as I loved them, again, I'm a business builder, and being sort of committed to a contract of that depth, I wouldn't have the freedom that I need as an entrepreneur. I wouldn't be able to exercise the freedom that I have, my ideas, my vision. Like I'm really good, like I can identifying gaps and then finding the resources to fill those gaps. And, like I brought Radical Candor into EOS. They're like, you can't do that. I'm like, well, you should read the book because it's really good. And our clients could really, benefit from it. There's a lot of good books out there, right? Beyond the Traction Library that are, super applicable to our target market clients in that $2 to $50 million range. So, but anyway, I'm an Irishman, so I'll hit pause. Otherwise, I'll just keep going.
This is the whole purpose. It's a coffee conversation. We kind of see where it goes. I'll tell you with the whole 90 thing, like I just got it. Like when we explored the software, and like I'm not being sponsored by 90 in any stretch of the imagination. But the power of that software, and being able to organize, because we used to organize stuff in spreadsheets. It was just incredible. And one of the things that you talked about in your story with 90 and S2 and your current ventures and all these different things that you've done has been this idea of partnerships or finding someone else, maybe a yin to the yang. And that's also something that I'm a deep believer in, because when I look back at Hunt a Killer, I never have created a murder mystery game in my life. When I look at the recruiting, I have a certain level of expertise in recruiting just because I built Hunt a Killer at its peak was about 150 people, and I was a part of those hiring processes. But by no stretch of the imagination am I a career recruiter. And so what I do is I go out and I find these subject matter experts that I can partner with and bring my skill set alongside of their skill set. When you think about partnerships, like what do you look for, both from a like experience, expertise, maybe passion, and then also like how do you pick partnerships that are going to endure over time?
You certainly have to fundamentally share a core passion for the problem that you're fixing. The minute you go beyond one person, well, now you have multiple interpretations of how to solve the issue, right? I like that. I like conflict, healthy conflict, right? I like the pushing back. My first partner in my first SaaS company had about 140 IQ with a photographic memory. He only went to 3 years of college before med school took him. They're like, come on, you're done. We'll give you a degree. Come on up here. Yeah. And while he was there, he taught himself how to code because he was bored. That's the guy. Now, when you get to that level of brain power, that can be intimidating, right? I do not have 140 IQ, nowhere near it, nor have photographic memory. But here's the thing. We complemented each other. You mentioned that yin and yang, that coupling, that puzzle piece snapping together, right? That's what I look for. Find people, always look for people smarter than yourself, right? Surround yourself with smart people. That includes smarter than you, right? Just that has been part of my process, right? But you got to share that passion. And partnerships can be tricky. Obviously, the deeper you get into it, and then there has to be a consistent commitment to having same page meetings, like staying, like really going deep, like you build your list, I'll build my list, and we have this meeting where we try to solve those so we can leave with some sort of parity, right? You're not going to always be on the same page. I think the other thing too is you have to have absolute clarity on roles and responsibilities. And again, that's where, when you make these commitments, these are smart people, you got to trust them. Great leaders get out of the way of people. They let them move, right? And so, and vice versa, right? Like when I was with my partner who was that intelligent, sometimes I'd have to grab and say, look, pal, you can't talk that way. You're not making the emotional connection. You're missing it. Doesn't make them a bad person, but that messaging that rolls out to the end user isn't good. And so having some tension is okay. Of course, the worst thing to do is ignore anything personal or professional between the partners. If you start ignoring stuff, that's the beginning of the end. You have to be willing to have those owners meetings, as they call them, right? Where it's a safe room. It's not a senior leadership team meeting. It's a partner meeting. And those are different conversations that you have, and they can be tough, but I've enjoyed mine. I would say that I would still be involved with 90 had I not had some health issues. But now I get to go do other cool stuff like what I'm doing now.
And I love that. Have you ever had a partnership go sideways?
Well, they always bend.
I like that.
And, some partnerships just don't work out. And when people are open and honest about that, it's okay. I mean, it's okay. If it's no longer a fit, then you have to have the solution. And if that means someone bows out, then you try to do it as professionally as possible. I mean, you came together for a common mission and goal and work together, and hopefully you can exit in that way. Have I had heated conversations? You betcha. I'm an Enneagram 8.
That's actually a really interesting point, because you talked earlier. It feels like it's the second time we've kind of came to this like tough conversation. And earlier you talked about this idea of like healthy conflict. What's the difference between healthy conflict and unhealthy conflict? And like from an outside perspective, like what are those signals or different things that you're looking for to say that's healthy or that's gone over?
Well, the obvious, quick, short answer is anytime you cross that line in your language and you go personal, you need to maintain that line of integrity. And when you go unhealthy, can be like arguments nonstop, just in front of employees, just in the bang, bang. Like I was counseling some executives last week. They let a small problem evolve into a flare up. And it was one of those situations where, of course, they both thought they were right. Neither one of them was willing to bend. And they did all of this in front of a handful of employees. And it's ego. And you'll see behind me, I've got a book up there by Ryan Holiday called Ego is the Enemy. Recommend that book all the time to anybody and everybody. It doesn't have to be just an executive. Healthy conflict is like, hey, Ryan, I've got to talk to you about a particular issue that I believe that you're involved in, and it might sting a little, but I just want to get it out, and I want to have a conversation. So I kind of prepared you for a sting. I don't really know how it's going to land. It might be nothing. It could be a mosquito bite, or it could be a 10-pound hammer. I really don't know. I don't want it to be a 10-pound hammer, but it's just being, polite and courteous and aware. A few years back, I had a situation in my own company where I kind of lost it with someone, and that person they committed to something, said they could get it done. I did a rookie move and didn't double check, trust and verify. And I went to give a demo of a SaaS product, and what I'd asked for wasn't there. Now, I've been at this for 30 years, right? So I was cool. The client didn't know. But when I got out of the meeting, I was hot, man. I was hot because I really needed that to be in there, not to necessarily close the deal, but the client would have been blown away if I had this one thing, which the programmer said it will be there. And so I have a coach, a PhD, and I called him. And I'm like, this employee, blah, 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 insubordination, I love it. He goes, Chris, I want you to read a book. and he holds up this book. The Only Leader is Worth Following by Tim Spiker. I'm like, okay, I'll read the book. So he didn't give me any answers other than go read that book. I got to page 66. So the book talks about, in the 5 years of research, the discovery was there are 2 attributes that make a leader worth following. And that's being inwardly sound and others focused. And those 2 attributes have definitions, okay? Well, I think it's page 66. It talks about being self-aware. And the definition is you understand the impact you're having on others. And bang, that was the nose punch. I'm like, there it is. That's why Coach wanted me to read this book. And I grabbed my phone. I'm like, I got it right here. Self-aware. I didn't. He goes, yep, Chris. He goes, number one, you're 6'3", 255. You're a big, intimidating guy. You just carry yourself large. You have this deep, Shrek voice, and you just have this physicality about you. And when you bring in your passion into that, you really can light up. Now, you can light up a stage, which is all positive because you're really good on stage, or you can light someone up. And again, you lit this person up because you just didn't realize the impact you are having on others. So, now that you know that, and we role played and kind of, all right, how would I handle it now, having read this? And that's really how I learned, by the way, is through role play. I get all these books, and then I take the tools out and kind of apply them, right? But that book, like, boom. And you know what I did, Ryan, after I had this whole realization? I wrote a 12-minute TED Talk and a 45-minute workshop, and I was traveling internationally giving it just before I got sick. I was in Dallas and Jamaica, over 1,000 CEOs. It's just, I wanted to share my story because I want to be a leader worth following. I don't want to always be the 9-pound hammer. And even at the age of, I'm turning 60, I still have something to learn. But here's the coolest thing out of that whole thing. I had to go backwards. And what I realized is I had learned some bad habits from my father in the way that he led his companies.
That's like, and talking about your father, and that was really like a generational thing. And even when I joined the military it was very, very early 2000s, it was still very much you do as I say, you don't ask questions. There's no reasons to understand the why. And I think over time, what we've realized is that as human beings, we can get more out of people if they believe in what we're trying to accomplish as a team. And so like that philosophy shifted, but that was very much, that was very much a generational thing. When you look back on that circumstance, because I'm dying to know now, because you kind of dropped the seed, like how would you have handled that situation different with that employee? Like what was your retrospection? And if you could do it over today, how would you approach it?
Well, so here, what I've done since then is I send myself to training every year, some kind of training, formal training. This year, I'm going to Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann's storytelling training in March. Rooftopleadership.com. Scott Mann, learn about him. Amazing man. He's sharing his 23 years experience as a Green Beret with entrepreneurs and business owners. And I'm very, very honored and proud to be his coach. But, and I learned a lot from him as well in his leadership. Like, for example, I love Commander's Intent. Like, so when you ask, what would I have done differently? Well, I would have gotten more training for me, leadership training, right? Like leadership training that's more human centric. So more psychology courses, maybe, right? How the human mind works. Like I love the book Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. The way he has done his research, talking to all those neuroscientists, and then using framing to set up a pitch. Just always educating myself, trying to get better. I didn't do a lot of that in the beginning, and it's kind of goes back to your earlier point. Did you sleep? No, dude. And it was put on the blinders, head down, and plow, and that's what me and my partner did. And they were 12, 14-hour days. I mean, late nights, weekends in the first, 2 years, quite frankly. But even when I think about going as far as back then, I had formal training from Motorola when I was with them, but it was sales training. It wasn't leadership training. So I wished if I went back, I'd be like, dude, pick a training seminar, one thing a year, like go invest in yourself. And I've been doing that ever since, I've been doing it for a while now. And on different things, right? Like this one's storytelling. I want to be able to convey myself in a much clearer way through storytelling, because that's the original, way that we transferred information, right? After writing on walls and getting past grunts, the evolution of communication. And I think now, so more than ever in our world, I mean, we need to learn how to communicate more effectively. We need to be less judgmental and consider the other person, really consider Kim Scott, she in her Radical Candor, her vertical access going, oh, you fundamentally have to care about your people. And if you do, then you're going to be willing to piss them off a little bit because you're going to challenge them to be better, but in such a way that it's appropriate. There'll be conflict, but it'll be healthy conflict where, hey, we're entering the danger zone, or however you want to coin it. there's all kinds of different ways you can tip off that, hey, we're kind of entering into an area where it's going to get a little meaty here. So let's keep our egos in check and our emotions in check. We deal with facts. We don't deal with theory, right? Got to be data-driven conversations, hopefully, mostly. But yeah, so anyway.
All right, quick break, friends. Do you find it impossible to hire and retain top sales talent? Or worse, are you paying insane recruiter fees who are all using outdated hiring processes? Yeah, I was too. At Hunt to Killer, we were spending hundreds of thousands on recruiter agency fees. And after I sold that company in 2025, I started Talent Harbor. And the whole vision here was to make sales recruiting accessible to small and medium-sized businesses, because the organizations that can hire and retain world-class people are the ones that ultimately win. Most organizations rely on things like ZipRecruiter or LinkedIn, and they get hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes. But we find that the best salespeople are already perfectly placed somewhere else. And that's why our approach is to go after them. And we do that through a business model called recruiting as a service. We do not charge commissions. We do not have success fees. We don't have contracts. We don't have long-term engagements. And we become an extension of your team as expert sales recruiters. If you're tired of the same old recruiters and want to actually grow your sales team, check us out at talentharbor.com. That's Talent Harbor, TALENTHARBOR.com. Let's get your next sales superstar hired.
You talked about this idea of caring, and I hear this a lot. I agree with this, and I'm curious in your perspective. Like this whole idea that like care and empathy is really kind of the cornerstone of leadership. Like a lot of things can be done. You set the vision, and I'm not saying those things are simple, but like setting the vision and making sure that everybody's on the same page, rowing in the same direction. Like great, we're good. But the cornerstone or the foundation for that we hear about a lot is this notion of care and empathy. And how do you do that? Because you just, on one hand, you just talked about this idea that like sometimes you have to enter the danger zone. And if people know you're coming from a place of love or a place of caring, then they know that you're just pushing them for the greater good of themselves and the organization. Like what are some ways that you can show that you care before you're entering the danger zone and you've built that trust?
Yeah, it starts in the interviewing process for me. Because, I'm going to show them, look, we have an organizational chart, and these represent all the functions in the company. And each function, each box has a mission, it has KPIs, and it has roles and responsibilities. And the sum of those are what that seat focuses on, and that's their job, right? So that's clarity. First, super clear, and then expectations. Being super clear with expectations. And it's not just your expectations of them. It's also their expectations of you, right? You got to work together. Whether it's a managee-manager relationship, the vertical or the hierarchical structure, I think it just starts fundamentally with being super clear on what the job is and what the expectations are and how we're going to measure success. And then the other thing is we live open and honest. Now that doesn't come easy for a lot of people, right? Some people will feel like a snitch if they're calling out something they see in a broken process or something. So it all starts up front with the leader, like saying, this is our philosophy, right? Kind of like system and soul, right? System are all the systems and processes and tools in the business. And then the other people. Like you have to have more than 1/6 of your focus on people in your business, right? And so what do those investments look like? Well, one, you got to become a better leader. You need to become a leader worth following. And so you should be investing in yourself like I do. Send yourself to some kind of training or read the next book or whatever. And for them, it's setting expectations, showing career paths, showing how you support them along their journey in your company, the cadence of meetings, the cadence of the employee, how often you're going to sit down with them, right, and coach them. I don't, call them quarterly employee meetings, monthly. They're coaching opportunities. Now you still got to be the boss, right? I mean, you gotta be the boss, and if you see underperformance, you have to call out the underperformance. But if you've already done it on the front end and had these conversations and set them up, they're going to come in understanding that. And so when you come in and it's pretty obvious, say we got to have a tough conversation. It's been 6 weeks in a row. You're not hitting your quota. Something's wrong. We got to have a conversation. I know, Chris. I know. I've been meaning to come to you or whatever. All right, cool. Let's get in there and let me help coach and mentor you. Let's solve it together, and you can get back out there and get back on track. Like, that's the manager's job, I feel. And if you can do that without a heavy hand, and it's more of a, like, show the story, like there's a sales story, there's a marketing story. Share the story, see the picture, understand how the sales process works and the execution. These are all blocking and tackling, which again is what a good leader should do. Get back to the basics. So, that was a lot for a little bit short question, but it can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. If you can be, to your point, if you can be a compassionate leader and show empathy, and be willing to be tough and candid, but be human, because we're belly to belly. It's a human connection. Nobody wins from this or berating. Nobody wins in any of that leadership styles anymore. And I like to look at more of as a collaboration, a team. We're a team. How can I help you get better? How can you help me be a better leader? Like, give me feedback.
When you think about, you talked a little bit about these one-on-ones, and I used to have one-on-ones every single week. And right now it's like there's a big debate around one-on-ones. And you talked about it as a coaching opportunity, as a mentoring opportunity. Right now in the headlines are don't do one-on-ones. So NVIDIA's CEO just came out and said he doesn't do one-on-ones. He brings all 60 people together and he talks about what's going on, and like that's enough. The CEO recently of Airbnb came out and said, listen, I believe in having private conversations when I have teammates that are in need or they have personal issues that are going on. But I find that when I get involved in one-on-ones, I start to solve the very problems that they're supposed to be solving. Or there's this idea of there's politicking. So maybe there was a decision or something else that had happened, and now they're trying to take a new position or outside of the main room, trying to take or steer the company in a different course. What type of frequency do you recommend from a one-on-one, and how do you navigate this whole, like, I don't know, I used to do them weekly and now people are saying don't ever do them. Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah. And, coming up like you did, man, I've seen the weeklies, quarterlies, I've seen all of it. For me, it's like, look, at the end of the quarter, we're going to review your performance. So that, there's a quarterly review, because we know each month exactly what you got to do and where you got to be. So we're going to run the scorecard at the end of the quarter. And then you're going to ask me questions and I'm going to ask you questions. That's coaching. Now, my hope is if one of my direct reports has an issue, they damn well bring it to me. They don't wait, let it fester or get worse. It's like Johnny on the spot, right? I'm totally open to that, but that's dangerous too, right? So the 1 minute manager meets the monkey. I had a client, their CEO, open door policy, huge company, out of target market from the smaller operating system. So big company, big franchise actually. And she went to her peer group and she's like, I need help. And they're like, okay, identify your issue. I have 8 executive direct reports, and 6 of them just keep coming into my office unannounced, asking for my help, and I'm sick of it. Every single person in that round table said to her, You're the problem, not your executive. And she, like, her jaw drops. She goes, what do you mean I'm the problem? I'm the CEO of the company. They're like, hold on. You're allowing the behavior to happen. Read this book, right? And the 1 Minute Manager is a small book, but the essence is, if you open your door like that, there will be people who take advantage, because what do they have? They have an issue. They're carrying an issue. What do they want to do with that issue? They just want to dump it off on their boss's desk because I can't do it. And then or I can't solve it. I need your help. And that, either way, they're running out the door. And so that's all they're trying to do is dump their stuff. So the solution she did was she got memo to the executives, the whole team, not just the 6. And she said, moving forward, you may only come into my office unannounced with an issue as long as you have 3 solutions so that I can help you pick the best one. 1, 3, 1. Brilliant. Brilliant. And guess what started to slow down?
People come into the office.
Damn right. They'd stay to their desk and they'd figure it out. And instead of going upstream, where should you go if you have a departmental issue? Downstream.
People closest to the problem.
There you go. And so she was able to flip the script and instituted 1, 3, 1. I teach that to all my clients now.
Wow. 1, 3, 1.
For every one issue you have, in order to see me, you must bring 3 solutions so that I can help you pick the best one.
And that takes what's interesting about that type of tactic is the notion or the headlines right now is not to completely eliminate one-on-ones. It's to not create frequency or dependency on one-on-ones. And it sounds like that's what 131 does, is it still invites those conversations. And it still helps create and cultivate those relationships. But at the end of the day, it's almost boundaries. It sets boundaries.
It's boundaries. And you can determine the strictness of those boundaries, right? Because the thing is, she was allowing the behavior to happen, right? But she was super frustrated. So, one little different perspective and boom, she's like, I get it now. And if we could teach that down the line, imagine how many issues could get solved locally with the people who live, eat, and breathe that issue most of the day.
I went through Naval War College about a year ago, and I went through this program called SLDC, Stockdale Leadership Development Curriculum. Really, really interesting program. It discovered a lot about myself and everything else. And one of the instructors, professors came to me and he was like, you strike me as someone that people just use up your time. And I was like, oh, interesting. Because I was just at drill weekend this past weekend, and I have an open door policy as well. And I got nothing done on that Saturday and Sunday. So I used to have to fly to Houston. I recently just changed commands, but I was in Houston. So I go from Newport, Rhode Island to Houston, do a drill weekend, then go back to Newport, Rhode Island, continue class. And an open door policy, but I only have 2 days. So once a month, I've got 2 days to get done everything that we need to get done administratively, things like that. And I would have people coming in all day, and I would realize that I didn't get anything done that I needed to get done specifically when I was down there because of the open door policy. And he didn't speak about the strategies as eloquently as you, but the whole idea there is you have to find a way to protect your time.
Yeah, you really do, because, you have your work to work on. All of our collective work is moving the cheese, right? But if we have all of these, departments, and if we consider them cylinders, they all got to be firing in synchronization, right? And we don't want anything to clog the line coming in. We just don't want to foul, a piston or foul the whole engine. And there's got to be synchronicity, right? There's got to be timing. And so there's got to be cadence. Look, I think the more touches you have with your direct report, the better. Hence a weekly departmental meeting, right? The one-on-one touches, that's determined by the leader. Yes, we could, that 4 times a year, we're going to review your performance. Okay. Do I need to have a monthly conversation? Maybe, unless they need it. Otherwise, not. The last thing I want to do is get in people's way. So, I'm of the ilk, like, you know, train them up so good, right? And then get out of their way. That's what great leaders do. That's everything I've ever read is train them so well and then get out of the way, give them a chance. There has to be a leap off point, a jump off point that the trust. And, some leaders hold on tighter than others, but it's a individual choice as a leader. But I think you'll find that the more touches you have, the more you keep your finger on the pulse without being this, you know what I mean? Overbearing. Just keep your finger on the pulse. You know, that's it. That's all you need. Light touch, not a heavy hand on the throttle.
And that gets right back to your trust but verify that you talked about kind of earlier in the conversation, where it's like you don't have to micromanage, you don't have to be all over top of it, but just verifying that things are happening. How do you, like, when you look at it, just seems like such the opposite approach. We share that philosophy almost to a degree of where my Vistage chair used to always pull me aside, and he's like, "Hey, there's a difference between like stepping back and like abdication. Like you are like completely removed." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I just need to get the hell out of their way so they can get their job done." And he's like, "Yeah, but you still need to be there to support. You still need to be there to verify and make sure that we're upholding the standards that you've set and the expectations and things like that." And so, like, when you think about the Elon Musks of the world and the Steve Jobs of the world, you hear the complete opposite, where like their hands are so tightly wrapped around whatever it is that organization's doing, that like you wonder how anything gets done. And there's actually probably another more recent example of something similar. And like, you and I share that philosophy, but how are other people so successful? By like putting the thumb on and like strangling, making sure that everything is being done exactly to their standard.
Yeah, it's quite a feat. It's pretty impressive. Look, it's surrounding yourself with brilliant people to run your company. And clearly that's what he's done. And, he acquired some of them, most of them, I think, right? But he's gone out with a clear idea in mind from what I can see. And he went out and just got all the right people to the best of his ability. And these people, and look, he's a charismatic guy. I mean, love him or not, he's a charismatic guy. But, he is working on things for humanity. And I think the people, that probably, there's a lot of people who are pulled to that. But, these companies they're all impressive.
It's changing humanity. We have internal debates over intolerance and tolerance and a lot of other things down that path. And the reality is like, you don't have to love or hate somebody for them to change the world in a positive way. And it's very hard to know like what's true and what's not true nowadays. And that's half the issue with all of this. So
yeah, I've been in this space below 100 million most of my career. I've worked with a few clients, fortunate enough to work for a few $billion clients, that's a whole nother level. Same thing, but a whole nother level. And in the entrepreneurial space, I'm excited. Like right now, I'm launching an initiative that's veteran focused, veteran and first responder focused. We have about over 2 million registered business owners that are either a veteran or a first responder across the U.S. And I've had so many DoD clients across the years, and this is part of my give back now. I really am focusing a lot of my efforts, and this is getting down to the ground, right? Like, veteran comes out, wants to start a business, or maybe they started it while they were in or put it together, and now they're launching. Um, you know, Oh my God, they just served you served our country, and now you're going to serve us again by building a beautiful business for our country. Like, who can't get behind that? I'm in. So that's who I want to help, and we've got a lot of cool things happening with pulling the resources. Remember, I said about filling the gap with the resources. So my current venture is called ProfitFirstApp.com. So, like digitizing the book Traction, the most popular book on cash flow management is called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. And we've secured the licensing rights to the book, and we've launched. And listen, when I first became an entrepreneur, I had this meeting with a huge company. They eventually bought us, but it was the first meeting. And I'm green, man. I'm wet behind the ears, but I'm good at what I do. And I got this meeting. And so there's like 12 executives in this conference room, and the owner, CEO, third gen was down at the other end of the table with a person sitting to their right, never introduced himself. And we're talking, and I'm doing my thing, and this guy introduced me. He goes, "Hey, Chris, can you share your last 3 years EBITDA?" And I said, "Well, I didn't come here today to share that sensitive information, but if today goes well, I just might." Like, I've been in a boardroom before. I know it. I don't panic. I don't break. I've already like earned my scars, so I know how to handle it, right? I left that meeting shaking in my boots. Want to know why? I couldn't repronounce the word he said. I'm like, what did he say? So I called my accountant. I go, yeah, this CFO guy wants to know my last 3 years EBITDA do or something. And she goes, Chris, did he say EBITDA? I go, that's it. I go, what the hell's EBITDA? What's EBITDA? Well, here's the story. So you know what dyslexia is with letters? I have dyslexia with numbers. So if I look at a spreadsheet, forget it. I want to vomit. Don't do spreadsheets. So I steered away from financial classes. So I never learned anything really. And my dad never taught me anything, you know. So my accountant, I said, listen, I want a crash course on like accounting, like for a small business. And that's how I learned. I went to my CPA's office. She made a glossary of terms for me, EBITDA being one of them. And she just kind of took me through it all. And I had a sense of cash flow and all that, but she really brought it together for me. And so, you know what I've been doing ever since that day that I didn't know what EBITDA was? I have all my clients, their scorecards, they have to have definitions behind the KPI and it has to, what's the output? Because people like me who aren't good with math will be very reluctant to raise their hand and admit they don't know what it is. But you can't have that mindset being a leader. You know, the minute you roll up into a manager and you have a budget and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, if you're that person, don't be afraid to ask one more question, or don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I know it can feel embarrassing and all that, but believe me, you'll never want to get caught like that again. And I never was, right? And so my business, I needed to invest in that so that my financial business acumen went up, right? And I could be prepared. But there's a lot of stories like that in the beginning.
And is that so? Talking about the app, like, is that bringing that book to life? By the way, Profit First read it maybe 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. Became one of my favorite books, and I run my entire life on Profit First. We're not doing too good running it with the business because we only have one bank account and it just creates a headache. But personally, I've got like 6 bank accounts and everything just goes to where it needs to go. And like, it's all hidden, and it's what you see is what you get, or what you see is what you spend, or whatever it is. Love the book. So you're taking that book and creating some sort of app that helps people kind of focus and manage?
Yeah, this is another great story. It's just, I've been at it for 30 years and they start adding up. So I had a client way back in the day when I was an EOS implementer. I had a client on the Space Coast, and they were custom engineering, and they were uh, doing great. They doubled in size while I was their coach, and they pretty much graduated just before COVID. And I got a phone call one day from the founder, and he's like, "Chris, I got to talk to you." I'm like, "What's up?" And he goes, "Listen," he goes, "we haven't talked in a while, but um, after we graduated and COVID hit, we lost several DoD contracts. Like government just, that's a whole nother story too. I've got a lot of DoD ones, right? But so anyway, he said he said I found myself for the first 13 years in business, first time. He goes, I'm upside down like 350 grand. And he goes, I'm in my peer group. And he goes, Chris, do you remember how we met? I go, of course I do. I go, your peer group gave you the copy of Traction and you opened it and it had my sticker on the inside. He goes, yeah. He goes, well, I was in my peer group. I was telling my peer group about my cash flow problems, and a guy handed me the book Profit First. And so me and Richard, his partner, they felt after having, I'm not tooting my own horn here, but after having been coached by me, they felt they had the discipline and accountability to adhere to this Profit First methodology. So they did. And in 18 months, they paid off all the debt. They were positive 6 months ahead. Paid the debt off plus 6 months reserve in about that short time frame. And they said, it's the book, it's the methodology. It sounds crazy. You got to open up all these bank accounts, but it worked. And I'm like, great. And I'm like, you want to build a SaaS product, don't you? and they're like, yeah, we'd like to have you join us. And so we started a company and we started programming, and then worked out a deal with the author and to get the exclusive license agreements. And so, and now we're ready to launch 2.0. And there's going to be that little hiccup you talked about in the banking accounts. Hopefully, we've solved that. So when we launch, we'll have to get you in there because everybody said, Profit First was kind of difficult, like EOS was. It's just paper based. You print out all these papers. How do you keep track of them? It's just a bloody nightmare. I mean, we've had software since I won't go down that road, but it was weird not to have software for a whole system. But anyway, the the guys were like, we want to build a SaaS product, and we've become coaches, Profit First professionals. And so I said, I'm all in. And so here we are. We're ready to launch 2.0. We are tracking nicely, and we have, we are working with the author weekly. It's wonderful, the access he's giving us. And so you're just going to see this product continue. And we've got the basics in the book, right? Just like EOS and the 5 foundational tools, that's how 90 was launched. Just the 5 tools. But look at it now, right? All these years later. It'll be like that with Profit First, right? Right now, we got the blocking and tackling of the book, and getting people on board, right? Just the early adopters. And we're very excited about the product because it fixes such a huge problem.
Is there a consumer play? Because I think obviously Profit First and the whole thing is about business, but there's also seems to it's changed, just like EOS has kind of changed the framework and put things into my ADHD brain and compartmentalized and helped me out there. Like Profit First has helped not make financial or like take finance out of my brain, and it just works. It just automatically works. Is there a consumer play to this in addition to the business, the B2B plays?
Yeah, listen, we want to take the Profit First app global to any entrepreneur who's struggling with profit. You know, entrepreneurs, they work, they grind, they get to the end of the year. Where's all my profit? Where's my money is really what they're saying, right? And they're like, man, I work so hard, but they look back and it's just like, for what? For what? And so that's hard to continue under those circumstances, right? So when we talk to them, this is a methodology that is going to ensure, provided you follow the methodology, right, that at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, so much so that you'll be paying not only salaries, but you'll be paying the owner's compensation in addition to their salary, but it's all right there in front of you. And the funny thing is about all of that, Ryan, is it's the envelope method. It's my mom used to use it in our house. Cash would come in and my mom would pull out her folder, which had envelopes, clothes, food, electricity, more. I swear, I can see it right now, visualizing it as a kid. And so Dave Ramsey, big component of the envelope method. And the cool thing that Mike Michalowicz did is, we were all taught sales minus expenses equals profit. My dad taught me and all my brothers, pay yourself first. You got to keep food on the table and a roof over your head, right? All Mike did was sales minus profit equals expenses. Brilliant. But it's not like it hasn't been around. My dad taught that to me and my 7 brothers. Pay yourself first. Just establish your profit, pay yourself first, then pay everything else. So that's it's a great book. Highly recommend it. And if you have time, you can check out the app at profitfirstapp.com.
Nice. I've got this weird thing where if I read something or if something like really resonates, I need to find out who the author, who that person was. And so when I read that book 5 or 6 years ago, I hunted down Mike and just had a very brief, it was either email exchange or LinkedIn DM. But from our 3 sentences back and forth, seems like an amazing human being.
Yeah, you should see him on stage. He's a very good speaker, really connects with the entrepreneurial audience for sure.
That's awesome. All right. Last thing, anything that usually we get to this point and I'm like, oh, well, if people want to find you, how do they find you? Or where do they find you? And EOS implementers and other people that are seeking business give out their sometimes cell phone numbers. That's not really, I don't think you're necessarily looking for clients. You're looking to spread the good word of all the things that you're doing and the ways that you're giving back. However, if there is anything that I haven't touched on or information that you want to put out there, now is your time.
Yeah, I'm still coaching clients. So my primary focus right now is the microbusinessacademy.io, and that's helping micro-sized businesses. That's where I've got a page dedicated to veterans and first responders. We're going to be growing that out more Q1. But I also do a lot of executive one-on-one coaching. I have a 1-year curriculum. And then I support the guys over at Profit Pro, where we're working on. I'm kind of the head of BD over there. So,
you, the head of BD,
looking for that next development opportunity.
There you go. Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking, now it's been an hour and probably like 10 minutes, but thank you so much for taking the time to come on and learned a ton, full page of notes, and can't wait to talk to you in the future.
Yeah, you betcha, Ryan. Thanks. Always good to talk to you, buddy. Take care.